Hello, and welcome to the on-record portion of the Rockbridge Report. I'm Deandra Speechak. With us today, we have Sheriff Bob Day. Thank you for joining us, Sheriff Day.
Thank you for having me.
I guess we'll just start off with, what are the duties of the sheriff?
Sometimes you think they're everything, but basically for in the county, I'm responsible for the law enforcement, for the service of civil process, which is jury summonses and court summonses, and then also for the court security in the courthouse. Also can be responsible for transporting, picking up prisoners, extraditing them from other jurisdictions and getting them into our jail.
And you've held the sheriff's office since 1992, that's 5 terms now. Why did you decide to step down after the last race?
It's time. After being sheriff for 20 years and about 14 and a half as a deputy, 34 and a half years, I'm ready to retire and turn it over to someone else.
And what sort of challenges did you see in Rockbridge County over your time over these past 20 years?
Well, when I first went to the sheriff's office, I think we had a total of 3 computers, IBM PS2s with a 40 meg hard drive in them, and certainly the computerization has changed tremendous. Things changed somewhat after 9/11 too, with reports and type of information that we were passing on. You've seen a change in some of the crimes. We've moved to different drugs from the marijuana and cocaine. That's been challenging. Another thing that's really happened is with the economy and budgets and money being cut from the state, it's put a hardship on localities to fund my office, and we've had to cut back. So.
I know the Lexington Police Department is using laptops in their patrol cars. Is there a reason that the Sheriff's Department didn't do that?
Well, one of the things that you have to look at when you're the sheriff is funding and cost. Can we really afford it? And if we can afford it, what is the return? One of the things that concerns me about mobile data terminals in the cars is officer safety. When an officer is looking at that keyboard or that screen and he's taking his vision off of the person that you stopped or encountered, that is a concern somewhat. But the main thing is just the cost.
And you've been, and I mentioned this already, in office for 20 years now. What sort of changes did you try to implement and are willing to kind of follow up on?
Well, certainly we had to move along with the computerization, networking, our reporting softwares that we use in our dispatch for our CAD, computer-aided dispatch, and the mapping. I have a good staff on hand that was able to help. I had volunteers when I first started that even wrote software programs for me in DBase 3, which young people your age wouldn't even have an idea probably what I'm even talking about. It was a database program. That was one of the main things that we had to move with is the computerization.
And Election Day is right around the corner. What sort of challenges do you anticipate the new sheriff facing?
Well, here again, budget and money cuts, and I think the governor is looking for, well, he's even asked for 3 and a 6% cuts to the budget, and maybe even a 9%, and is looking for cutting staff again. That's the hard part that's coming up, and then it drops the burden back on the localities, and you've got to work with them also. That's the main challenge that I see that's coming up.
Any other challenges?
Well, we've tried to stay on top of gangs, and we're fortunate to charge some of the Latin kings with organizing here. That's something that we need to stay on top of and continue our drug fight. We're working on a pretty good case right now, our drug task force. The cooperation right now between the city of Buena Vista, the city of Lexington, and the sheriff's office is running great. Just the other week we were called out to go to Buena Vista when they had the bomb scare at Southern Virginia College, and that's worked good. The drug task force is working good, and we're also working with some federal agents now involved in that. Matter of fact, one was at the office today, so that's going well. But that's things that are in place, and I'm sure that the next sheriff will continue to run.
What sort of skills should the next candidate have, or the next sheriff have?
Certainly anyone who has worked within the sheriff's office has the knowledge. And, and of course my chief deputy is running. By being there and in that office, you know the contacts, you know the players, you know what's required and what needs to be done. Even when I left the sheriff's office in 1988 and came back as sheriff, I'd been there for 14 and a half years, so I had a good knowledge of what's going on. The duties of the sheriff is different from that of the police chief because we have the civil side that's we have to deal with. You have to deal with budgeting. Sometimes some of the hardest parts you can have is just dealing with personnel. Then you have the part of being an elected official, and you've got to answer to your voters. So.
Who are you endorsing? Excuse me, Sheriff.
I'm endorsing Chris Blaylock, my chief deputy. Chris has been my chief deputy for 19 years. A young man that should have gone to college and law school. I've worked for 3 sheriffs. I've never seen a man as knowledgeable as the law and keeping up with things. Many times I would have a decision or choice to make, and I would go to him and look for advice on things. And I feel really good in endorsing Chris. Would be an excellent sheriff for the city of Lexington and the county.
And I know that Captain Blaylock has been asked at forums why the sheriff's department, doesn't employ women. And I know that in the last race that you ran, there were some accusations against you about not employing women deputies. How do you respond to that?
Well, I have 2 that work, and both of them were working as courthouse security officers. One of them right now is filling in dispatch because we were short 2 of 5 dispatchers, and she is a real good dispatcher, a good trainer, and she's helping us out right now in dispatch. I am not opposed to having a female out here on the road as a road officer. You just have to have the right person to apply and want to do it. And I haven't had that yet. So.
Besides that issue, what other issues have you noticed in this race, if you've been following it, that seem sort of center point to it?
Well, people can talk about their training and their education in all the schools, and occasionally you'll have an employee who all of a sudden has a resume this thick, and when you look at it, all they've ever done is attended schools and training, and have never got the knowledge and experience of out here working on the road and doing a job. Captain Blaylock spent 10 weeks in Richmond at the Forensic Academy. He is one of 4 people in the county, and all 4 of them are at the sheriff's office that has attended the Forensic Academy. I chose to send him to the FBI National Academy, which was 10 weeks, in which he obtained his yellow brick. To attend a class or seminars is one thing, but to actually graduate and have a certificate or diploma from them, to me is way more valuable. People talk about the captain that sat behind the desk a lot, and that's people that are talking that don't really know what's going on. And it is surprising, we all see that in politics, that people voice opinions on things that they really don't have all the facts together.
And I know I've spoken to the other 2 candidates, Vernon Reynolds and Roger Clark, and I know Roger Clark is running with the intention of accreditation. Why hasn't the Sheriff's Department been accredited yet?
Why should we?
Or why should you?
Sheriff Yule Hunt was on one of the TV stations and talking about his accreditation in Franklin County. And to get accredited, it's going to take you probably at least 2 years of one person working on writing policies and procedures for that to happen. When it does happen, the only person that gets any money out of it is the sheriff himself. It creates a burden. I've seen agencies who become accredited and 6 months later were not abiding and doing what they need to be to still continue to be accredited. And there's been agencies that when they come up for reaccreditation had to go back and change things. Accreditation sounds good, but what does it really get you? Look at departments that are accredited. Are their officers any better? Are they making any more arrests? Serving the citizens any better? For me personally, I don't see it.
And I know that you've seen the construction of the new jail, of the new courthouse. And when I spoke to Mr. Reynolds, he seemed to speak out against a jail expansion. Do you know anything about that, or
I don't really want to be critical, but you know, Reynolds talks out of both sides. He's talking about when he was at Middle River Jail about how much money that he created by selling bid space. You can do that if you have bids. When you have a 105 bid jail that's running the capacity of close to 100, you don't have those additional bid spaces to sell. When this jail was built and opened in 1988, it helped pay for itself pretty much because we were keeping other jurisdictions prisoners and collecting that money. That was fine until our jail, you know, reached capacity with the localities' prisoners. And there's some plans right now in a way to renovate and upgrade some of the things that need to be done in a 25-year-old facility.
Well, it looks like that's all we have time for today. Thanks for joining me. And thank you for joining me also. My name is Deandra Spichak, and this has been the on-record portion of the Rockbridge Report.